college admission officers. What is the worst reason to not accept a student? Story 1. Just graduated college last summer and worked in the undergraduate admission office for 4 years as a student ambassador, tour guide, shadow host, etc., and as an admissions counselor's assistant. Worst case I've seen is a kid openly admitting in his application essay that he was a habitual cheater throughout high school, but it taught him how to become resourceful and think outside the box. I've never seen an application get denied faster. Opinion. He learned the hard way that adults prefer good liars instead of an honest person. It seems he thought, they will value my honesty, only to discover that real life isn't like the movies. Story 2. I once went and visited a college that my brother was interested in. All of the potential students and parents sat down in an auditorium. The admission officer must have been having an awful day because he proceeded to go on a full-blown rant. He said, if any of you write a college essay about a tragic event in your life, it has to be tragic. An essay about how you moved in your sophomore year of high school to another state and no longer had friends with you. That is not tragic. If it is supposed to be a tragedy or huge overcoming, then it must be a tearjerker. Every time I see an essay about overcoming a lame obstacle, it instantly hits the bin. Needless to say, my brother did not attend. Opinion. This is the worst. Many students have tragic events that could reshape admission views, but a lot of those stories are too personal. Admissions doesn't need to hear about your struggles if they are things you can't even share with your best friend. Story 3. I worked in the back of the admissions office with all the paperwork and applications when I was in college. If you weren't absolutely amazing, the smallest thing could cause a rejection. Being rude to the people in your call center who also processed applications, was a big one on the list. The 6 women who worked there were so nice to everyone on the phone, and were still called stupid C words a couple of times. Those students were rejected. Opinion. I honestly believe that more businesses need a kick the rude idiot out rule. It frustrates me to see people rewarded for being like that. It shouldn't be that acting like a jerk equals getting benefits. Story 4. A variety of felonies, from robbery using a long-distance hole puncher to unaliving. On the application is a checkbox question. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? What it doesn't tell you is that not only are you unlikely to be admitted if you check yes, but felony convictions are an automatic disqualification by the review committee. But the other half of the story is, if you check the no box, it's not like we run a background check on you. So I'm confident there are quite a few convicted felons walking around our campus right now. Opinion. I think that if they served their time, this shouldn't be an issue. There are likely far worse individuals on that campus than a few former convicts. They were just better at hiding and never got caught. Story 5. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I used to work at a college admission office, and most applications with Asian names go into another pile regardless of grades. Anyone who tell you there is no discrimination going on has their head in the sand. Opinion. Man, that is so wrong. What about merit? Those students worked hard for that opportunity. Unfortunately, this keeps happening even though it's illegal. And look at how the times have changed. Now the ones denied an opportunity are white people. In the last year alone, I remember reading about 3 articles on this subject, exposing big movie companies in the US for this behavior. I don't want to name names here, but let's just say they're so popular you probably already watched their movies as a kid. Story 6. I rejected a student who applied to our PhD program to work with me because she plagiarized my paper in the personal essay of her application. Who does that? Opinion. Probably someone who doesn't understand the difference between quoting, referencing, and plagiarism. Or is it just mimicry in an attempt to flatter? Story 7. I attended a top 3 school in the US recently. and worked closely with their admissions office during my time there. Each year, we have a new student orientation, a week where students are allowed to visit other dorms, do activities, etc., in order to get acquainted and make any changes to their schedule or living arrangements. My school is popular among high school obsessives. They pine over it and dream about attending. Some get obsessive. One got too obsessive. He was just starting senior year in high school and hadn't even started applying to college. He decided, however, that it was his right and obligation to attend this school. So, what is an unadmitted high school student to do? He lied to his parents and said that he had been admitted into a special program at the school, hopped on a bus for a 4-hour drive to campus, and pretended to be a student. I believe his reasoning was that if he attended classes there for a year, he would certainly get in, because he would be able to prove that he could do it. He made friends, convinced desk workers at dorms that he had lost his keycard, and slept in various people's rooms after making a variety of excuses as to why he couldn't stay in his roommate was mean or allergic to something, etc., and hopped from one dorm to the next after being found out and banned from his current living arrangements. I think he was on campus for almost a week and a half. His plan was to stay for the entire year and attend classes. He even went so far as to find a handicapped girl, convince her that the school had assigned him to her as an official note-taker, and was going to use her as his in to lectures. Admissions had their eye on him for a while prior to this. He was really active in the admitted students Facebook group, even though he hadn't even applied, and nobody could really figure out what his deal was. When they started getting reports of this sketchy compulsive liar who was sleeping in dorms he didn't live in, was attending events he wasn't permitted to attend, and exploiting handicapped students, they put two and two together and tracked him down. They eventually found him and contacted his parents. He was escorted off campus by 2 police officers who traveled with him all the way to the bus station to send him home. They informed him that there was a standing order for his arrest if he ever stepped foot onto school property again, and that was that. So I asked some friends of mine in the admissions office. I'm not sure what it takes to earn an instant rejection, but would that do it? Yes, and they did. Opinion: the kid should have kept a low profile. You can attend MIT lectures just by walking in and sitting down. It seemed like he overthought it. Freshman courses in the first week usually have hundreds of students. As long as you skip attendance and introductions, you're fine. Just don't submit any assignments. Story 8. I am not a college admissions officer, but there is a scholarship in my area provided by a business. It's an amazing opportunity and I never thought I would get it. Well, lo and behold, I get it. The organization has a representative at my school, so I asked her why I got picked. She asked me what I wrote my essay about, and I told her. I was at camp one year and I helped a girl with some serious problems. She then told me that both scholarship people and colleges have gotten to the point that they will turn you down if you write about how the mission trip you went on changed your life. They're sick of it. Freaking everyone goes on a mission trip, sees starving children, and suddenly their life is changed. She says that they totally support missions and the things they do, but she also said, if you write about the mission trip you went on, you may go to heaven, but you won't go to Harvard. Opinion: yeah, I've heard many college advisors say that service trips are overdone as essay topics. Every overprivileged kid seems to write about them, and they often don't help the villages at all. But some students become aware of the perils of the pitfalls of poverty tourism and realize they weren't actually helping, or write about how they didn't realize until they got there that they were involved in a poverty tourism, feel good about myself venture, and hadn't been helping, and now They are determined to approach international aid with more humility by doing what the individual people and villages actually needed. Story 9. My mother does this at her college. They get so many applicants every year that it basically comes down to really simple things when rejecting potential students. When you've got thousands of people vying for a limited number of places, eventually you've whittled down the list to a bunch of equals, and you're still left with too many. At that point, it's basically up to the seemingly inconsequential and random choices of your admission officers. Opinion, I agree. People complain about this process being unfair and too picky. But with thousands of applications for one spot, it has to be like this. This means capable candidates can be overlooked for minor grammar mistakes or even CV layout issues. It's unfair, but it's necessary. Story 10. I'm a teacher. One of the students I work with just had his acceptance to Stanford rescinded. He's a low-income minority student with an excellent GPA and ACT scores. On paper, he's a score for schools that value talent and diversity. So he got accepted to Stanford. When he got the letter, he tweeted, "At Stanford," saying something like, "Heck yeah, I got in." That prompted them to click on his Twitter, and they saw all this messed up stuff about misogyny and illegal substances use. They called our school and told us that they no longer were interested in admitting him as a student. Opinion. It's surprising how academically smart some people can be while lacking social skills. I'm sure this guy will get into another good school, if he hasn't already, and will learn not to say certain things on social media. Story 11. I know some schools will reject people if their grades are too high. They have too many extracurriculars, etc. The thought being that these students are basically perfect and will probably get into an Ivy League school. So what is the point of accepting them if they aren't likely to attend? Opinion. And I always thought that meeting and especially exceeding the requirements guaranteed that you would be accepted. Story 12. I don't know if this counts, but as a summer job one year, I worked as an admissions advisor for one of those online universities. Literally everyone got in, but we could still reject individuals if they didn't meet certain criteria, minimum GPA, recommendation letter, etc. Every morning we would get a list of leads to call. This was basically comprised of individuals who clicked the university's banner on a website and entered their phone numbers. So I got a lead for this fellow who is 85 and wants to complete his MBA. He turns out to be the meanest person I've ever talked to. Starts yelling at me from the get-go. Didn't want to hear anything about the requirements. He just wanted to know about the student loan process. I ask him for a ballpark of his GPA and he goes off on a tangent about how that's none of my business, clearly trying to scam the system. Needless to say, I rejected him, and it felt good. Opinion. I don't see this as a bad reason for rejecting the applicant. He was turned down due to his behavior, and I'm sure you and your higher-ups wouldn't want unnecessary rudeness. Story 13. I am a college admission officer. Top 50 colleges in the US. Not going to be any more specific than that. There are some truths in the responses here already, but please know that every college admits students in a different way. Some will admit the top 10%, then go on to the top 25%. Some will not admit students who are well above the caliber of the average student who attends the school. Some have a tuba quota, and some just have lousy employees who make lousy choices. I will not admit a student that I don't think has a chance of coming too high. I also won't admit a student who will not be able to cut it academically too low. Admitting a student that you know won't be coming hurts the acceptance rate and therefore your rankings. Admitting a student who won't continue to graduate hurts your persistence rate and therefore your rankings. When I decide not to admit a student, I generally have a good reason. In fact, There's generally a combination of things. If you are the applicant, I will never tell you these reasons, even if you ask for them, because at that point, it's over. For what non-admissions people would consider worst, I would say there are two reasons. First, what a student had on his or her social media pages, and second, for just being boring. Opinion. I think most applicants recognize when they are rejected, but would appreciate feedback to improve their applications for other schools. Providing at least a general reason for rejection could be beneficial, as higher education institutions should encourage applicants to grow, in my opinion. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell button to receive notifications to my latest videos.